Hey friends, my name is Joey and welcome back to my channel, Gender Not Found. As you can see, I'm in my room again because my mom decided to stay home because she's just been incredibly stressed out with this whole thing. And she only decided last night so I couldn't get like extra recordings or something. So I gotta record in my room now. I already uploaded something today and I will upload this tomorrow and whatever I record tomorrow and stuff like that. Anyway, so, um, when we, oh my god, I can't stop yawning. Just frustrating because I have the outside noise of my mom doing whatever she's doing, even though I'm in my bedroom. So, in my bedroom. Anyway, we're gonna read more of A Guardian Angel. In case you guys haven't noticed, I'm really into this book. Um, and I really want to finish. How many chapters is there? Let's see. Oh my goodness, there's a lot. There's 134 chapters right now. And we are only on chapter 22.6. Wait, what? 22.5 and 22. Okay, I get it. Never mind. Okay. Oh my gosh. Finn and Jake. Uh, okay, so I have a lot of questions. So, first of all, we never. Oh my god, I'm sorry. Oh my god. um, we never saw. We never saw like so. Obviously, Fiona knows Marceline, but we never saw them meet each other. Like we never read the part where they meet each other, and I'm not sure why. But um, so we don't have that like vision or chapter or whatever of them meeting each other, which would have been nice. But whatever. As I said, time skips around a lot in this book, so I think. Oh my god, I can't stop. Time skips around a lot in this book, and in the last author's note, it said that Fiona is like 16 and a half, and Marshall is now 19. So, and by the way, I'm still planning on doing that bubbling fan fiction and eventual Fioli. Like, I haven't decided what I'm gonna call it yet, but it's gonna start when Marceline is in high school, when Marceline is in like her freshman year of high school, and it's gonna go, um, it's gonna go towards, it's gonna go over the next few years and maybe a little longer, but essentially it's gonna be like How I Met Your Mother, but with the Adventure Time characters, it's gonna be like yeah, it's gonna be like How I Met Your Mother, but with the Adventure Time characters. So it's gonna be bubbling and also eventual Fioli because I love Fioli. But anyway, and I kind of hope even though I didn't put like ship them together in the book, I do have other ideas for fan fictions where they're shipped. I have like 5 different ideas for 5 different Adventure Time fan fictions, and all of them are just like romantic stories because I love that stuff. Anyway, and so I'm really into that, and I'm definitely planning one where Finn and Marceline are shipped. Finn Celine, I think it's called, and then yeah, where Finn Celine is shipped, and then we've got like um I've got like some other ideas and Blah. But and not all not all of them are with Marshall. Some of them are just like one of the books I have, the Finceline one is just with Marceline and Finn and maybe a couple other Adventure Time characters, but it's not gonna have the ship of Marshall and Fiona, mostly because they're not in that book. Um but obviously Marceline and Fiona know each other. It would be nice if we had seen the part where they were introduced. Marceline is like my favorite Adventure Time character, so And I kind of hope, and her and Finn's relationship is kind of cute. Maybe they'll end up together. I don't know. Like I said, I haven't seen most of the show. Like, I'm only like a season or two into it, if even that. Um, so, okay. I think we gotta. Alright, I'm just gonna read this chapter. Chapter 22.6 Finn and Jake. Everything was quiet in the house. Marshall and Fiona were asleep in the family room downstairs. Their parents had yet to come home, but called saying they'd be in shortly. The only light on, aside from his own, was the one in Jake's room. Finn glanced over at it as he lay on his bed, his door open just a fraction, enough to see out into the hall. Finn stared at the door across from it, feeling a jumble of emotions. Honestly, he didn't know what to feel. More than anything, the one thing on his mind was if Jake broke his promise. He really, really hoped he didn't. Then again, his brother had always had an issue with right and wrong. Even if it was wrong but felt morally right, Jake didn't have a problem doing something horrible. Big things like really hurting someone, almost killing them, little things like stealing food or an old woman's purse. The older boy had done it all. Everything but taking another human life. Jake lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling and feeling his cell phone buzz. He glanced down at it, smiling at the video messages. Jake, I missed you today. The kids at the daycare are a real handful. I know you like visiting your parents, and I hope to meet them someday, like how I hope you wish to meet mine. I love you. Lady smiled at the camera and blew him a kiss. She had gone home to visit her family in South Korea, and he missed her a lot. It was rare that he got a message from her, and hearing her voice made him smile. Closing the phone, Jake went back to thinking, and in his thoughts he couldn't remember, but he couldn't help but remember the first time he and Finn met. Ooh, are we gonna get a flashback? I love flashbacks. Okay. It was a hot summer afternoon. Children were playing in the yard, and the sounds of their happy screams could be heard. And Jake sat quietly in the tree. It was his refuge for the time being. It had been another 2 weeks, and from past experience, Jake knew that another kid would be coming into the house soon. He wondered, like all the other children did, about his parents. Were they alive? What were they like? Who were they? The tanned boy often wondered about them. He wasn't the oldest child here, but that didn't stop the others from singling him out, especially after his foster parents began to. He'd never noticed it before they brought it up. He was too dark to be white and too pale to be black. His foster parents called him Oreo, a representation of his mixed heritage. He'd thought about running away. It'd be a better existence than the constant shuffling from foster home to foster home. Oreo! The sudden sound of his foster mother's voice caught his attention, and jumping from the branch he'd been resting on, the 13-year-old made his way into the house. Where in the world have you been? I've been calling you, the older woman snapped. Well, maybe if you call me by my name and not that stupid nickname, I'd listen to you. Watching the woman's face color red in anger was by far the best treat, though the hard smack in the back of the head made him think twice whether it was worth it or not. Boy, you'd best watch your mouth. Don't you even dare start smarting off. Now apologize to your mama. She's not my mother, she's my foster mother. Why you? Frank, don't worry about it either way. We want you to show Finn here the ropes around here. Teach him the rules. Your foster father's gotta drive me to work, she said, collecting her purse. Understood? Yes, Mrs. Mays. Good. Frank will be back in 30, she said, walking from the house. Her husband following, leaving the boy with the bear hat behind. Finn, was it? Yeah. How old are you? I just turned 10, Finn said, looking around and taking in all of the house that he could see. Nice. Here's the routine. Wake up, brush teeth and wash face. School, come home, chores, homework, playtime, dinner, and bed. That easy, Jake said as he turned and walked up the stairs, beckoning Finn to follow. You'll be sleeping in this room. It's the only room with a bed open right now. Boys bunk with boys and girls with girls. There's no mixing. Any questions? Jake asked as he grabbed Finn's bag and tossed it on the bed across from his. If this is your room, where's all your stuff? Finn asked, watching as Jake flopped on the bed and kicked his feet up. It's not going to be my room for much longer. I'm getting out of here. I'm not staying in this place. Oh, why? Because I'm going to go find my family, that's why, he said, watching as Finn sat on the bed. Okay. Jake watched as the small boy got settled, putting his bag at the end of his bed, and taking his hat off, revealing his blonde hair. Dude, you need a haircut, Jake said as Finn shook his head. Nah, my hair's been a lot longer before. Yeah, but Mr. Mays will nag about it, so keep your hat on or something. All right. I've never had any foster brothers before. Can we be friends? Finn asked, looking around. Sure. So, when are you leaving? The blonde asked, turning back to face Jake, who shrugged, gazing out the window. I have to meet a few friends next week, so not before then. Okay, can I come too? Hearing this, Jake turned to face him quickly. What? I'm not bringing along a kid. I'm no kid. I'm 9, 10. I just turned 10. Finn said angrily, glowering at the teen before him. Yeah, well, you're still a kid, Jake said, now ignoring Finn, who was fuming. Shut up, you're just a jerk. Takes one to know one, Jake said, walking from the room and leaving the angry boy behind. He wasn't going to do this again. Every time he got attached to one of the foster kids, they were adopted or moved. It always happened, every single time. He couldn't do it again. It wasn't worth it. It was never worth it. Days passed, and Jake continued to ignore the blond boy who occupied their room. Weeks had passed, and he'd been too nervous to go on with his escape plan. Just because he'd been focused on his plan to escape didn't mean he'd zoned everything else out. Even though he'd been ignoring the blonde, it didn't mean he didn't notice when he'd be quieter than usual or came in with random bruises. Finally, curiosity became too much for Jake to handle, and after his 14th birthday, he questioned the hat-wearing child when he came in cradling his arm. Finn, come here, Jake said, motioning for the boy to come. It had gotten cooler out, and instead of his usual blue shirt, he was wearing some ungodly, hideous pink sweater that he recognized from his foster mother's closet. What? The boy asked reproachfully. Dude, just come here, Jake said, pulling him over by his arm, watching as he winced as he pushed up the sleeve. Ow, don't touch it! Jake stared at his arm. It was bruised on both sides. The last time he'd seen an arm like that was when one of the foster children had fractured it after falling out of a tree. What happened to you? He asked, releasing Finn's arm, fearing that he was hurting him more. Nothing, I'm fine. Finn, tell me the truth. He didn't understand the feeling in his chest. Why did he care? Why did he have such an urgency to figure out what was wrong with this kid? It was just an accident, okay? Finn said almost desperately. He felt like a caged animal, like a cornered creature, and this kid who didn't care, the one who called himself his friend, but treated him like a stranger. Now he was concerned? Now he cared? Dude, your arm looks broken. What happened? Jake asked. Jake watched as Finn's determined face crumbled. He told me not to tell, he said quietly, as Jake stared in ever-growing concern. Who? Instead of answering, Finn looked towards the door, and mere moments later, their oldest foster brother walked in, their foster parents' birth son. Finn, get over here! I told you to wash these dishes. I told you to wash these dishes. The 16-year-old growled, standing at the doorway. That's bull because I did the dishes. What do you want, Marcus? Jake snapped. And who the heck said you could come into my room? He said, standing up to glare at the older boy. Finn watched as the tension steadily built up between the two, until finally the older boy left, turning and walking down the hall as Jake slammed the door shut. Turning, he sat on the bed Finn was sitting on. Let me see your arm, he said softly, watching as Finn looked to the door again. Hey, don't worry about him. Now let me see it. Turning away from the door, Finn pushed up the sleeve of the pink sweater, this time willingly revealing his bruised arm. Jake touched it gently, poking and prodding the blonde, who winced. Can you bend it? Yeah, it just hurts a lot. Okay, I don't think it's broken. It could be fractured, so go easy with it, Jake said, standing and walking over to his bed, leaning over to the other side and grabbing his already packed backpack. So, Finn said quietly, you're leaving tonight? He asked, looking down at the ground. Yeah, Jake said, now reaching for Finn's bag. You want to come with me? Almost immediately, the blonde's head whipped up and blue eyes met brown ones. Really? Yeah, you're my foster brother. And Marcus isn't. The guy's a jerk. So if he's been like this to you the whole time, I can't leave you here with him. So, if I'm taking you with me, that makes us brothers, Jake said, packing Finn's few belongings into the bag. Brothers don't leave brothers behind. Okay, where are we going? I'll find us a place, don't worry about it. A friend of mine's family just went on vacation, so their place will be empty for the next week. As long as we keep moving around, they'll never find us, Jake said simply as he shouldered his backpack and handed Finn his as the boy smiled. And take that stupid pink sweater off, you can have my blue one, he said, watching as Finn pulled the sweater over his head and accepted the hoodie, zipping it up and pulling the hood over his head. All right, I'm ready. You? Finn asked. Let's go, Jake said, opening the door. The sound of knocking woke Jake from his memories, and turning his head, he looked at the clock. It was almost 2 in the morning. Yeah? The door opened, and he watched as Finn opened the door and entered, flopping on the foot of the bed. Jake, can I ask you something? The blonde asked, watching as his brother's eyes were once again shut, as he leaned back, supporting his head with his arms. You already did, Finn, but sure, what's up? Now Finn was quiet, as he worded what he wanted to say in his head, but his brother His brother continued to lay silently, waiting for him to speak. That guy who attacked Fiona and Marsh, you knew him? The way Finn had said it, Jake knew that it was more of a statement than a question, but decided to answer anyways. Yeah, man, I knew him, but he's from the past. I don't do that junk anymore, Jake said, his eyes still shut, having a feeling of where Finn was going with this. The blonde shifted in the bed, now facing his brother. Fiona said he had a knife. Yeah, I didn't notice. Maybe this would ease his brother's mind. Or not. Jake, you can't fool me. I know when you're lying, Finn said, watching as Jake opened his eyes to stare at him. I know what you want to ask, so why don't you just say it? Jake asked, sounding meaner than he'd intended to. I'm not sure I want to know the answer. Hearing this, Jake blinked in shock. He thought that he killed him? Finn, I didn't kill him. Why would you think I would? Jake asked, sitting up and staring at his brother. I don't know. You have this twisted sense of right and wrong, but you've never killed someone. But I've never killed someone, the older boy interjected, pushing himself up as Finn continued looking worried. You almost did. Jake, sometimes, knowing what you're capable of scares me sometimes, especially when I know you're angry, the blonde said pleadingly. Finn, are you more scared that I could possibly have killed someone, or are you more scared that I could have broken my promise? The promise, man, Finn said almost desperately. It's always been about the promise. I can't lose you. Jake stared at his brother in shock. Finn, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to lose myself. Not again, I promise. I still promise. I haven't broken a promise to you ever, and I won't start now, so trust that. Jake said softly. I've never given you a reason not to trust me, Finn. Never. I know, but I worry, Finn said, flopping backwards on the bed. Finn, man, you shouldn't waste time worrying about stuff. Sometimes it'll happen to someone else, or sometimes it'll plain just never happen. Don't worry about it if it's out of your control, he said, watching as Finn rolled over and stared at the wall as he lay on his stomach. Finn, come on, answer me, Jake said, now nudging him and watching as Finn reluctantly cracked a grin. Okay, I trust you, I really do, honest. But I am scared you'll lose it someday, the blonde said quietly, feeling as Jake's hand knocked off his hat, ruffling his hair. Finn, you don't get it. As long as you're with me, I'll never lose it, man. I know I gotta take care of you. I'll always have to, because brothers take care of each other. That's our unwritten rule, you know? I take care of you and make sure we're fed and you keep me out of trouble, Jake said, moving it so he lay across the bed like his brother and flinging his arm over his shoulder. Even though we've got Mom and Dad, even though they saved us from what we would have been, we'll always rely on each other, Finn. We'll always have each other's backs, and you know it. That's just how we are, man. It's how it'll always be, okay? Okay. You trust me? Always. Good. Don't need you doubting me, man. Have faith in your big brother, Sheesh. What did you do to him, though? Finn asked warily, curiosity getting the best of him. I used his own knife on him enough to hurt him, enough to scare him, but not enough to kill him. I told him that if he ever touches what's mine or any of my family again, that I'd kill him, and while I won't do it myself, I know enough guys who could, so it's not an empty threat, and he knows that. Finn could hear the seriousness in his brother's voice. Okay, that's not so bad, but you're not getting the Bloodhounds back together again? No, that's history. It's in the past, and it's not coming back. Okay, good. Go to bed, Finn. I'm gonna go to bed. I'm tired, Jake said, pushing Finn as he stretched. Alrighty then, I'll see you in the morning, Finn said, standing and walking to the door. Yup, see you in the morning, Jake said, tossing Finn's hat to him and watching as the blonde exited the room, flicking off his side lamp. His room was engulfed in darkness, and just as he closed his eyes, the sound of his phone caught his attention. Reaching over, he checked the screen, and with a sigh, he shut his phone off, ignoring the text, and quickly falling asleep, refusing to let his mind wander. And then there was just some author's note saying how someone complained that the story was too long with 25 chapters, and he was like, well, I'm gonna make it as long as I want. So, which is awesome. Like, you should never, if you want to make a one shot story, you should make a one shot story. If you want like 1,000 chapter story, make 1,000 chapter story. Who the hell cares? Anyway, I'll be right back with another chapter. This was fun. Okay, bye. Okay, I'm back. So what is going on with all this gang stuff? Because obviously that's not just gonna like go away just because you hurt someone. So anyway, um We're gonna just see what we've got here. Chapter 22.7 Finn and Jake, Part 2 Siblings. Oh, okay. The sun was shining when Jake woke up, and turning over, he looked at his phone before sighing and snatching it off the side table. Digging through his dresser, he pulled on an old pair of jeans and a clean shirt before grabbing his hoodie. Walking from the room, having already pocketed his phone, Jake made his way down the stairs and out the door. Nobody in the house was up. It was only 6 in the morning after all, but he had something to do. Making his way down the street, he turned into the same alley from the night before and entered the abandoned building. "Took you long enough. I sent you that text hours ago," a familiar voice said, and turning, he spotted the blonde girl leaning against the wall. "Yeah, Tiff, you said to meet in the morning. I'm not going out at 2 a.m. for you." "Well, it's kind of important, Jake. You know, I bounce around. Never stick in one group for too long since our group broke up." "Just get to the point, Tiffany. I want to go back to bed," Jake snapped. "You messed Big D up, and now his gang's out for blood." Hearing this, Jake sighed. "Listen, I'll do a one-on-one any day. Hell, I'll do a two-on-one. I don't care. But it crosses the line when my siblings get jumped. I told him I told him right out, if he touches them or even looks at them wrong, he's dead. You'd think he'd tell his boys that," he said angrily, but was cut off as the blonde spoke desperately. "Jake, he put a hit out on you. He knows he can't fight you, and he knows his guys can't take you in a fight, so he's getting someone else to do his dirty work." Hearing this, Jake was surprised. "Do you know who he called in?" he asked quietly. "I couldn't hear too well. He was on the phone in the other room, but I know it's either one of two people. It's either this girl May, she goes by the nickname Meow, or it's Scorcher. I know May, I've dealt with her before, but I know Big D too. He wouldn't set in a kid to off me. He'd be insulting himself, and the guy's big on pride. What do you know about this Scorcher guy?" "The guy's cracked, Jake. He's not somebody you'd want to mess with. You'd want to mess with, which is why I tried to warn you. Which is why I wanted to warn you. He's really tall, like really abnormally tall, and he's big on fire. You remember that five-alarm blaze that was all over the news a few months ago? He did that. It was an entire apartment complex. 12 people died. I know you don't want to hear this, but he's the guy after you. Jake, you're gonna have to get him before he gets you." "You know I'm not gonna just kill someone to save my butt, Tiffany," Jake said, leaning against the wall, his hand fingering the blade he'd stolen the night before. "I know, but what if you had to save your family? He'll have no problem Molotoving your parents' place." Tiffany watched as Jake stayed against the wall, now leaning his head back with his eyes closed in thought. "Tell me this. If I've got the info, you've got the answer. You know that. Good. If I leave and make it obvious that I'm splitting from town, will he leave them alone and follow me?" Jake asked, now looking at his former gang member. "Your guess is as good as mine. Nobody had an advance warning. The guy's quick and quiet, Jake. He may follow you, or he may use them as bait to draw you back. The thing is, you're quick and quiet too." "But I can't kill someone. I promised my brother." "Well, break your promise. This is a life or death thing. Would Finn rather have you break your promise or be dead? He won't have to know anything, Jake. Just do it. The leader of the Bloodhounds can't be so weak, can he?" Tiffany asked as she turned and walked through the building, leaving Jake alone. "What am I gonna do?" he said softly, closing his eyes as he sank to the ground. Okay. Oof. "So will I live?" Marshall asked as Fiona checked the cut on his head. "Yeah, you'll live," Fiona said, switching on her iPod as Marshall set up the video games. The familiar sounds of Simple Plan began playing as the blonde sat down, grabbing a paddle. "I heard you're doing okay, but I want you to know I'm a dick." Suddenly the music stopped and Marshall snorted, trying to hide his laugh. Finn just stood in the doorway, grinning. "I see what you did there," Marshall said, smirking. "Finn, turn the music back on, and what's so funny? I don't get it," Fiona said, looking back and forth between the two boys. "Don't worry about it, Fiona. Either of you two see Jake? He wasn't in his room this morning," Finn asked, looking to the two on the couch. "Nope, I only woke up a bit ago," Fiona said, gesturing to her pajamas. "I heard someone leave the house this morning. Maybe it was him?" Marshall offered, watching as Finn nodded. "All right, I'll see you guys later. I'm gonna go find him. It's not like him to just up and vanish," Finn said as he turned. "Wait, do you want some help looking for him? If it's not like him to do something like this, then it means something's wrong, and if something's wrong with my brother, I want to help make it better," Fiona said as Finn grinned. Well, if that's the case, I'm coming too. I can't let you guys have fun without me, Marshall said, standing. Finn smiled, feeling more than appreciative as together they walked from the house after bidding Steve and Ellen goodbye. So, what do you think made Jake bounce out of here so early like this? Marshall asked as Finn walked down through the town. When we were kids, before Mom and Dad, Jake would take care of us. He always had this immoral sense of right and wrong, even if it was something bad that he was doing. If it helped us out, he did it without a thought or a question. He's always been this way for as long as I've known him. Last night, after he beat up that guy, I don't know, I just feel like something's up. I know Jake knew him, and not in a good way. Well, it's not like he was some crazy gang leader or something, Fiona said, trying to make light of the situation. Seeing the look on his face, both Fiona and Marshall understood. Finn, I wouldn't think any differently of Jake, you know. Yeah, Fee's right. There's no point in judging a man for his past, especially if he's changed, Marshall said as they continued walking down the street. You know I've said it before, but you're all right, Marshall. So I take it that he was? Fiona asked, looking up at her brother as they steadily headed up the street. Yeah, he was. The gang was called the Bloodhound Pack, but it went by a few variations of that name. It wasn't really a gang, but more of a group of friends that would stick together. And even though I was younger than the rest of them, they accepted me because I was Jake's brother. We didn't have a place to live or a thing to eat. People were always after us. We hustled money, stole, jumped people. Well, Jake did. He refused to let me be involved with any of that. He said he wanted one of us to stay gold. Hell, I don't even know what that means. He said with a strained laugh as he shoved his hands in his pockets before he continued on. As he continued on, but after 3 years we got caught up and sent to a reformatory. I was almost 14 and Jake had just turned 16. He beat up some guy and took his wallet because we hadn't eaten in 4 days. The officers found us when we were eating at the food court a few miles away. They took us in and said they were going to split us up. Then Ma found us, he said softly. No, please, he's my brother. I want my brother, Finn cried desperately as one of the officers forcibly took Jake from the cell, not even telling them why. I'll be back. Don't worry, bro. I've got you. Don't worry, Jake yelled back. Jake shouted back, watching as the blonde's face was straining against the bars, trying to see where he was going. Tears poured from his eyes. He couldn't help it. His only family was being taken only God knows where, and there was nothing he could do about it. Jake, bring him back. I want my brother. He'd been so panicked at the loss of his brother that a gentle hand on his face startled him. Whirling around, he was met with a concerned face. It's okay, sweetie. Your brother will be back shortly. He's just talking to the officers, I promise, the smiling blonde said. Can you tell me how you two came to be here? I can tell you two are most certainly not children with homes. Finn simply shook his head. Jake always told him to keep his head low and his mouth shut. Okay, I can see that you don't want to talk to me, but I do want to talk to you. It's hard living out there. It's hard living, isn't it? Finn glanced over at her and quickly looked away. She'd pulled over a chair and was now sitting in front of the holding cell. My name's Ellen. My job is to help kids like you, lost children who need homes and parents. Can you tell me your name? She asked softly. Why? He asked quietly. Why what? Why do I want to know your name? Why do you care? Why do you care where we are, or what our names are, or how we're treated for that matter? And don't say because it's your job to care, he said angrily with his fists clenched. I care because I was in the foster care system too. Hearing this, Finn's glare lessened, and as she continued speaking, he felt a lump form in his throat. There's a new place because no one wants you, and when you move from place to place, they give you a trash bag for your things, like your things are garbage, like your garbage, and you take what you can carry because it's all you have, Ellen said softly, watching as fresh tears poured from the boy's eyes. I know how that feels, and I know how it feels to run away from all that, but I also know how it feels to have someone love you like a sister or a brother. I just want to help you. Will you help him too? Will you help my brother too? I can do my best. I'll do everything I can. I want to stay with him. I don't want to lose my brother. I'm not going to promise to keep you together because I can't guarantee that, but I promise to try. I'll try my best to. You know you could get into a lot of trouble for this, kid. It doesn't help that you've got a record on file a mile long already. Man, the second I turn 18, that'll be wiped clear, Jake said with a smirk, making the officer glower at him. You're not off the hook this time. You're being charged with aggravated assault. That's a crime punishable by up to 20 years in prison. What? That's bullshit. Not with your priors, it's not. Since you now understand just how deep you're in, why don't we have a chat? Who are you supposed to be? The guy sent to scare me straight? Oh, Glob, I promise, Mr. Officer, I'll stay on the straight and narrow from now on. Yes, sirree, you betcha, Jake said, oozing sarcasm as he glowered at the two officers in the room. Finally, he looked at the only other person aside from who was seated. It was a younger man with dark hair. The hell are you looking at? He snapped. Though oddly, the man smiled before looking at the two officers. Would it be too much to ask for you two to leave the room? I'd wish to speak to this young man privately, if that's okay with you. Jake watched as the officers shared a look and walked from the room. The man continued to stare steadfast at him. Again, what the hell are you looking at? Do I have two heads, or have you never seen a mixed-race kid before? Hearing this, the man had the gall to laugh, which only irritated Jake. Oh, believe me, I've seen many mixed-race children, and you ask me who I'm looking at? I believe I'm looking at a young man who just assaulted someone so he and his friend could get some food, the man said, shuffling through some papers. He's my brother. I'm sorry? He's not my friend, he's my brother. According to your file, the only sibling you have is your brother Jermaine, and he's currently living in Chicago. You don't have any other siblings that the state knows about. Finn is my brother. I've been taking care of him for years. 3, in fact. That's how long it's been since you and him ran from the Mays family. Now tell me, on top of all the minor offenses you have, why shouldn't we just let them toss you in jail and send Finn back into the system? You can't do that. He needs me, Jake said desperately, his heart dropping at the thought of being separated. Is this what he needs? A delinquent and delusional brother who gets thrown in jail? It sounds like you need him a lot more than he needs you. No, if you send him back there, he won't stand a chance. I'll do whatever you want. I don't care. Just don't separate us. He's my best friend. He's my brother and my best friend. Now that is what I wanted to hear. Who are you? Jake asked warily, wondering what he was getting into with this man. My name is Steve Wright, and I'm the man who's going to get you and your brother out of this hole you've dug yourselves into. Now let's talk. They saved us. Scared us senseless, but saved us. I don't know what Dad said to Jake, and to this day he still won't tell me what they talked about. They adopted us just like that. Not even a week later, we had a home, and parents, and a room, and just like that, Jake stopped everything. No more stealing, getting into fights, all that stuff. But his past has always stayed with him and has caught up time and time again, and Mom and Dad, they just ignored it. They knew he was trying to stay straight, and he did too. But I think now, after what happened last night, I think it may have caught up to him again, and if that's the case, I have to do something to help him. After all the years of him looking after me, it's my turn to have his back. It's my turn to look after him, Finn said determinedly as they continued onwards. It had taken most of the day. It was a small town, but that didn't mean there weren't places to hide in it. Finn was determined to find his brother, and Fiona and Marshall stayed by his side. Walking by the alley from the night before, Fiona paused, shuddering, holding onto Marshall's sleeve, and Finn came to a stop, looking down the darkened path. Finally, he turned and walked into the darkness, Marshall and Fiona following close behind silently. Finn walked past the door to the end of the alley, but having been forced through it, Fiona paused at it, catching the boy's attention. She pushed it ajar, surprised how quietly it opened. She found it odd. It seemed to have squealed so loudly from rust yesterday. Marshall poked his head in and quickly backed out, shushing the two blondes. Jake's in there fighting with some guy. If we're quiet about it, we can sneak in and catch the other guy by surprise. Marshall said, catching Finn's shoulder and stopping him from barging in. Ducking down, Marshall crept into the open building, sticking to the shadows, and once he was in, he motioned for Fiona and Finn. Marshall watched as his girlfriend headed over first, and once she was by his side, Finn made his way over. Fiona, you stay here. Marsh, you and me will jump in when there's an opening, Finn said quietly, watching as the two brawled. No, Jake's my brother, too. I want to help, she said in a hushed voice. Finn, however, shook his head firmly. Marshall, let's go, Finn said as he led the dark-haired teen towards the fight, leaving Fiona behind. She was not happy about that. Fiona watched as they raced over the moment Jake was slammed to the ground. Spotting a brick on the ground, she snatched it up and raced over, whipping it at the man, pinning her brother to the ground, clipping his shoulder just as he brought his blade down towards Jake, bringing him to a halt. Slowly, he turned towards the blonde who had earned the majority of his attention. Feeling the intensity of his stare, Fiona swallowed thickly. Get away from my brother, she said with a glare, staring slowly at the man, watching as he retracted the blade, angling it to Jake, who was still below him. Suddenly, the man was jolted forward as he was tackled by Finn. Fiona jumped, watching as Marshall pulled Jake up, and Finn began punching the man below him as they rolled off into the darkness, and after only moments they were greeted with silence. Finn! Finn! Jake shouted hoarsely, freeing himself from Marshall's support and hurrying over to where they had disappeared, the two teens quickly following behind. Jake, I I didn't. Finn's voice was shaking and sounded strained, and making their way over, Jake and Marshall stared in shock while Fiona gasped. The man lay on the ground, the knife sticking out of his abdomen, while blood pooled around him. Finn was mere feet away, wiping his hands desperately on his jeans. Finn, come on, come here, Jake said softly, pulling the shaking teen up. I didn't mean to. It was an accident. He was trying to. Jake pulled Finn over and held him tightly. I killed him. I killed him, Jake. I You didn't do anything. It was self-defense. You didn't do anything wrong. But I Don't worry about it. I'll handle it, Jake said, pulling out his cell phone and dialing a few numbers. Jake, what are we gonna do? Fiona asked, watching as Finn shook. He's still breathing, Marshall said, crouched next to the man on the ground. He's not dead. He's still alive. They all turned in shock, and almost immediately Jake began speaking into the phone. I've got to clean up. Yeah, where me and Tiff met this morning. Good. It's time sensitive. He's still alive. Yeah. With that, he shut the phone and pushed Finn towards the door. Fiona, I want you, Marshall, and Finn to go home. I'll bring him to the hospital. One of the guys is going to help me. I want you to split now, because any of that noise attracts attention. Jake watched as the trio nodded. I'll come home after dropping him off at the hospital, he said softly. The three reluctantly made their way out of the building, and once they were out of his sight, he shut the door they left from and walked back to the man on the ground, crouching down to look him in the eye. I know you heard me about all that hospital crap. Just so you know, I'm not that nice or forgiving. Sensing the presence of others minutes later, Jake turned to face his old gang. You owe us, Jake, Tiffany said with a joking grin. I'm still not reforming the gang, guys. Sorry to disappoint you, he said, heading towards the door. I know, she said softly. What do you want us to do with him? Gareth asked, looking away from Tiffany and the twins. Jake paused in the doorway as one of the twins spoke up. We're gonna bring him to the hospital like all the other guys Jake beats down, of course. What did you think we'd be doing? He said with a laugh. No. Hearing this, their laughing was cut short as they looked at Jake in shock. There was no look of remorse or regret or even pity. Instead there was anger. Kill him. What? Tiffany asked in shock. You heard me. With that he walked from the building, not looking back as he headed towards home. Finn, Marshall, and Fiona all sat in the family room when Jake arrived an hour later. Walking down the stairs, he flopped onto the couch facing three worried faces. What did they say? Finn asked quietly, having changed from his bloody clothes. They said it was a close call, that he'd pull through, but that he'd pull through just fine. They all watched as Finn sighed in utter relief. Good. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine, but I think we should head back to school tomorrow. Let all this drama die down, Jake said, kicking his feet up on the table. Okay, I'll pack my bag tonight, the blonde said, walking as Jake picked up a controller. So, who's up for a round? He said, grinning, and immediately the three others scrambled for a controller. He'd never let them know what he'd done. He was keeping his family safe, and in his eyes there was nothing wrong with that. There never would be either. Holy crap. Okay, well that was nuts. I think that's gonna be it for me today. Two chapters. I think I'm good. This book is getting intense. So I'm gonna stop reading. I think that's it. And I already did that post earlier that had like 3 or 4 chapters in one reading. So with the other 2 chapters, it's already more than you guys could have expected. So I love each and every one of you guys. Please don't forget to always be yourself. And you are valid, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.